Now that we have a decent app, let's deploy it. This way we can share it with our friends, we can share it with coworkers, and we can put it out there for anyone to access. This is one of the best parts about developing an app, is seeing it out there in the wild. We'll be using Netlify to deploy our application, but first, we'll need to set up the GitHub repo for it. To do this, we'll create a new repository and give it a name that can be anything you want. I'm just going to use mastering Nuxt here. It doesn't really matter if you set your repository to be public or private, but I'm going to choose private for now. Now all we need to do is copy these commands to push our existing repo to this GitHub repo. But we can also come over here and copy and paste in those commands. If we refresh our repo on GitHub, we'll see that our code has been pushed and it's inside of GitHub now. Now we'll need to go to Netlify and set up our account to deploy from this GitHub repo. We can log in using our GitHub credentials. We'll ignore all these failed builds for my blog. A little embarrassing, but we'll hit Add New Site and import an existing project. We'll click on GitHub. And I've already authorized Netlify to interact with my GitHub account, but you may need to authorize it in that step. Now we need to configure our Netlify app to be able to see and interact with our specific repo that we just set up. You can choose to have Netlify be able to access any repository in your GitHub account, but I prefer to keep it locked down. It just keeps things a little cleaner and prevents any weirdness from happening in the future. So we'll select our repository that we just created. And hit save. Now we can see our Mastering Nuxt 3 repo in this list. If we select that, we'll be able to import that from GitHub. Nuxt will automatically detect that it's being built on Netlify and will configure itself to work with Netlify. We don't have to do much at all here. We just need to hit the Deploy Site button. Let's go to our Deploys tab on Netlify to see how it's being deployed. We can see the log from Nuxt as it builds our app. Bundles it up, and then deploys it to Netlify. Now that it's deployed, we can go check out the live site. We refresh the page. Now we can finally check out our deployed site. We can see the home page, which just says Hello World. but we can also navigate to one of the lessons. And here's our app working in all of its glory. Unfortunately, these videos are restricted because we only want them to be able to be seen on the local host. Otherwise, we would be giving them away for free. But other than that, this app works exactly as it did on our local machine. Now we can share this app with our friends, with our coworkers, whoever might be interested in checking this out. You can even tweet it out and share this with everyone. But don't forget to tag Mastering Nuxt in your tweet if you do. Now we need to see how we can trigger a new build. If we go back to our Deploys tab, we can see that there's a drop-down here for triggering a deploy. This lets us manually deploy the site if we need to. We can also set up Netlify to deploy a new build whenever we push a new commit to our GitHub repo. This is great because it lets us see our changes as we're developing. We don't have to manually trigger this build. It just will automatically build as we're working. To do this, we'll go to our site settings. And we'll go down to build and deploy. In the branches setting here, we'll edit this to all so that any branch that we push will be automatically built. So if we're working on a new feature, that branch will also be built so we can test it live. We can get feedback from others before we push it into the main branch. For example, if we wanted to update the styling in our app, we could create a new branch for that and work on that there. We can quickly update the styling on the course page. Let's change it to blue. We'll create a new commit. And then we'll push that commit to this new branch that we've created. Let's go back to our Deploys tab and see what Netlify is doing. We can see that Netlify has automatically created a new branch deploy from our update styling branch. Once that's finished deploying, we'll be able to check how this code looks live. Our new branch is now deployed, so let's go check it out. And we can see the blue background live on our branch deploy. At any point during the rest of this course, you can deploy your app just by pushing to the main branch or by creating another branch if you want to tinker around and try out some stuff. And I highly encourage you to do that because playing around with things and experimenting is one of the best ways to learn anything. And by deploying and seeing what it looks like as a live site, you can get more feedback. And once you're done experimenting, you can finish up and deploy the site, and Netlify will build it and publish it for you. And don't worry about getting off track when you are experimenting and playing around with different things in Nuxt. If your code is too far gone, you can always resync to the beginning of the next episode. Each lesson has a commit, and you can resync back up to that state. So go have fun and enjoy playing around with Nuxt and learning everything about it.